My name is Mitsuo Fuchida. I was the Japanese commander who led the raid on December 7th, 1941, at the U.S. Naval Base at Pearl Harbor. 2,400 Americans died on that day. When I was given the opportunity to lead that raid, I was excited. I was a decorated pilot who was raised in the Japanese Bushido tradition, and I believed the honor was the highest virtue of all. When Japan surrendered at the end of World War II, I was bitter. I met a missionary on the street, and he gave me a pamphlet about a man named Jacob DeShazer, an American soldier who survived more than 40 months as a prisoner of Japan.
My name is Jacob. I was on the last B-25 to leave the deck of the USS Hornet in Doolittle's raid. Our mission to bomb a Japanese aircraft factory was successful, but we didn't have enough fuel to make our intended landing point. We had to bail out of the plane in Japanese-occupied territory. I landed in a cemetery and soon became a prisoner of Japan, where I would spend 40 months of torture and imprisonment. Japanese captors were cruel. Beatings, starvation, dysentery, fear of execution marked my daily existence there. My only source of strength was in my hatred of the enemy. My parents were Christians, I was not. But one of my cellmates, Bob Meter, was a Christian, and he regularly witnessed to me, even though he was himself dying of disease and malnutrition. Through a miraculous series of events, I came to know Christ while I was still in that prison through a Bible that was provided by my Japanese captors. Just before the end of the war, I heard God's voice calling me to return to Japan as a missionary. I fulfilled that mission. I returned to Japan in 1948. I fell in love with the Japanese people and remained there for more than 30 years. God also used my testimony to plant a seed in the heart of a Japanese commander by the name of Mitsuo Fuchida.
When I heard DeShazer's story, I could not believe that a man would stoop to such dishonor, that a man who had suffered so much would forgive the very people who mistreated him for 40 months. In my tradition, we didn't believe in forgiveness. We believed in vengeance. After the war, many of my fellow soldiers were put on trial for mistreatment of American prisoners. I was angry. I believed that they probably treated our prisoners the same way. I was determined to prove it. I went to the docks to meet some of the Japanese soldiers who were held in prison by America, and I was shocked. I ran into my old flight engineer, Kazuo Kanegasaki, who had been imprisoned in America.
When I ran into Commander Fuchida, he asked me how badly the Americans treated me. I told him that Americans don't know how to cook rice. But I was treated very well. In fact, I met a young woman named Peggy who spoke excellent Japanese. She cared for all of us with so much love and compassion. She was like an angel from heaven. When we asked her why she treated us so well, she told us that it was because her parents had been executed by Japanese soldiers in the Philippines. They were missionaries who had served in Japan, and yet she treated us with compassion and love.
Hi, I am Peggy Covell. I was in school in New York when I found out about the death of my parents who were missionaries living in the Philippines. At first I was angry. I was raised in Japan while my parents served there. It was painful to hear how they died. But then I thought about how they would have responded. Not with anger or hate, but with love and compassion. God turned my heart and gave me a will to serve the very people who could have been my enemies. I decided to find a way to serve. Caring for wounded Japanese soldiers became an important part of my mission and calling.
How does a woman find such love? How can a warrior find such forgiveness? Kanegasaki told me about Peggy, and I was overwhelmed. I went back to that street preacher and read more about DeShazer's testimony. That preacher gave me a Bible. I wanted to know how and why these people were able to forgive their enemies. Then I read Luke 23:34. Jesus prayed for the people who murdered him, who laughed at him, and who scourged him. It was then that God gave me a new heart. God called me to surrender my life. I grabbed the bullhorn from that preacher, and I shouted, "I am Mitsuo Fuchida." I led the air raid on Pearl Harbor. I have now surrendered my heart and my life to Jesus Christ.
God uses the life and testimony of ordinary men and women, like me, Jacob DeShazer, and Mitsuo Fuchida. He removes hearts of stone and gives them new hearts of flesh.
Peggy and Mitsuo Fuchida. He removes hearts of stone and gives them new hearts of flesh. He gives them the heart of a warrior.
Like me, Peggy, and Jake DeShazer. He removes hearts of stone and gives them new hearts of flesh. He gives them the heart of a warrior. Yes, Christ uses ordinary men and women around the world. We are ordinary in every sense of the word. But we are extraordinary warriors, because we serve an extraordinary Lord and Savior. His name is Jesus Christ.